I just saw something that was rather interesting, and it was some recent headlines. It was actually a video, but it was a video sharing recent headlines about the current financial situation and struggle that many Americans are having and are unable to feed themselves. There's a food shortage, or at the very least, the food banks are running out of food, and crime is skyrocketing. Therefore, theoretically, I would assume that the underlying message here is that people don't have the money to buy food, not like they used to. Therefore, there is less food to be made available to donate to food shelters and kitchens and things like that. And then also assuming that the skyrocketing crime includes theft of potentially food because they can't afford it, or theft of the other items that they need as they are trying to retain whatever money they do have available for food to buy food. The conversation and discussion then goes on to two, maybe three different topics. One being the transfer of wealth. Okay, we have a huge wealth transfer that we are in the middle of right now as we speak. The other was the potential impact on businesses, business owners, and stability, future stability. And then the last one kind of threw me for a loop. And the last one was credit. So here we are, December 13, 2023. We are just a few days away from rolling over the calendar into 2024. And 2024 is going to be interesting. 2024 is going to be wild and crazy, okay? But I think it's worth having the conversation. It's worth talking about, having this discussion about what does 2024 look like? Because yes, everything has gotten more expensive. Yes, I can bring you news headlines and stories. Yes. Also, there was reference pointing out how all of a sudden, at the same time, everyone is directed to provide the same information. And we've seen this just the last 3 days, where Michelle and I, Squirrel Tribe, we were discussing how all of a sudden, at the same time, everybody came out with a report confirming how China was taking responsibility for allegedly hacking the different U.S. databases and critical infrastructure at the same time. And now, at the same time, this was December 10th, all these news headlines are coming out about people unable to buy food. So it seems like there's a general consensus and a collective effort to pump out the same news and information at the same time for a specific and particular reason. And in this instance, the reason was to normalize the situation. And we will normalize the situation of being unable to afford food. We will normalize the situation of being able to not afford your car payment and your vehicle being repossessed. We will normalize eviction. We will normalize all the things that are coming for those who are not ready, those who are not aware, and those who are not prepared. I actually have some information that I want to bring to you. I want to bring this to you guys a little bit later. I have notes here, and I think that what we're going to do is we're going to end up doing a live stream. I think you guys are enjoying the live stream, so we might do a live stream, Squirrel Tribe and I. But it's going to include a talk and discussion and conversation about Social Security and the 2024 Social Security increases, which are angering some Americans. And the reason being is while Social Security is set to increase by 3.2% in 2024, many seniors are worried about the limited inflation adjustment, which how the limited inflation adjustment will keep them afloat, which essentially it won't. It won't. Even the higher COLA adjustment that we saw at the beginning of 2023, it was still a challenge because it's always delayed. It's always behind. And it's really not designed in a way to help you get ahead. And that's really the big thing here, is not so much the normalization of this problem or these problems that are being presented now, but the misdirection and what you should do to get ready and get prepared. Okay. I'll just put it like that. I got to tell you guys, based on what I'm seeing, based on what I'm hearing, based on what we saw just yesterday with Michelle and I walking through a local food hall, which is less than a year old, already seeing probably a 30 to 40% failure rate of the businesses, the restaurants that leased space, already having closed, gone bankrupt, and haven't renewed and moved out. And the simple fact of the matter is that we can normalize it, or the news, the mainstream media, they can normalize it all they want. But you and I, we have to get ready and prepared for it, okay? Even if they don't want to normalize it, it is what it is. Now, they want to dictate and control and manipulate the masses by way of communication and information that they divulge and share and leak. And it's all by design, okay? And there are some folks out there who are playing by a different set of rules, and they're playing a different game that we've talked about before, a game that you and I, we aren't even supposed to be allowed to play, but we can still play our own game within that game, if that makes sense. So I got to tell you guys this. When I hear headlines and these stories about people unable to afford to buy food to feed themselves and their families, this is not a food shortage situation. There's plenty of food available. It's just expensive, or everything else in life is so expensive that food becomes a challenge because you have to pick and choose. Here's the deal. You could pick and choose, all right, what you're going to scale back on, but you can't scale back on your mortgage. You can't scale back on your rent. You can't scale back on your car payment. You can't scale back on your insurance. You can't scale back on a lot of things because you either pay in full or you're delinquent. You either pay in full or you're in arrears. And I was actually having a conversation with a friend day before yesterday about, and he's a real estate professional, and he says, people are going to stop paying their mortgage. Interestingly enough, you can stop paying your mortgage and be in a far better position than you would be if you stop paying a lot of other things. Like, you stop paying rent, you'll get evicted. But if you stop paying your mortgage, that's a different story. You stop paying your credit cards, that's a different story. You stop paying your car note, they're going to come get that joker. But there's certain things that you can cut back on and still have a strategy and a plan moving forward to have a much brighter future, okay? The key here is a much brighter future. But I got to tell you guys that in looking at it and approaching it from the position of doing what's right, if the news headlines are telling me that people can't afford food, if the news headlines are telling me that people can't afford their rent, if the news headlines are telling me, and the people are telling me, and the business owners are telling me, and the economy is telling me, and my gut is telling me that landlords are worried, which Michelle, she brought that up on another video, might have been on 2.0, might have been on Life. And she brought up how we're waiting to get word on the renewal for our apartment rent. And we haven't gotten an answer yet, but we suspect and expect it to not go up, or at the very least be reduced, while at the same time seeing a flood of more and more options and inventory hitting Zillow for rent in regard to single family detached homes. So I think that the apartment complex, they know where they stand, and they're trying to buy time. They're trying to massage. They're trying to be diplomatic with the situation. They're trying to, be strategic here. But they know that, hey, we could lose tenants based on our price because our competition is increasing. And as our competition is increasing, these single family home owners, second home vacation homeowners, Airbnb, short-term rental investors who were getting it years ago, who didn't get it last year, aren't going to get it 2024 and are worried for the future, are going to come in and say, look, we can give you an entire house for what your rent costs. And for instance, maybe we'll give you first and last month's rent on us, but we want stability. We want security. We want comfort. We want to be able to sleep easy at night. We want you to sign a 18-month lease. We want you to sign a 24-month lease. Okay. These are dead giveaways, telltale signs of the direction that our economy is going. Good, bad, or indifferent, it is what it is. But my thought is, my opinion, my take is that if this is the case, if this is legit, if this is for real, the last thing I want to do is go out and engage by using credit. Okay? If the headlines are telling me that landlords are worried and scared, people can't afford their cars, food is going by the wayside because, as I said, you can skimp on a few things here and there. Certain things you can't, but food, you can choose to eat less. You can choose to eat cheaper, grain of salt here on what cheaper really means because food is expensive. You can choose to do a lot of things with food that you can't do with other daily, weekly, monthly, annual expenses, necessities that your overhead you have to carry. Okay. So when I hear this, my thought is, well, I gotta cut back where I can. I gotta budget and I gotta make more. Okay. If I can't afford food, that means I can't afford to pay my credit card. And if I can't afford food and I can't afford to pay my credit card, but I'm using my credit card to buy food, what sense does that make? What logic lies there in that process? Now, granted, I get it. A lot of folks, they're burning the candle at both ends. And this is a growing problem that, I'm going to be honest with you guys, hasn't crept up on anybody. This has been in the works for years. Okay. This has been in the works for years. And if you've been watching and listening to my content, then you really shouldn't be surprised at all. But I know some people will say it did creep up on them because of some unexpected changes in their life that has a huge impact on them mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. That is all part of this normalization. Okay. High percentages of Americans can't afford an emergency that costs more than $500. High percentages of Americans are losing their jobs. High percentages of Americans are being evicted. High percentages of Americans are being foreclosed on. High percentages of Americans are losing their jobs or have maxed out their credit cards. Whatever. They're normalizing the situation by making it so that a lot of people will go out there and say, oh, it's not just me, it's everybody, so it's okay. And if it's not just me and it's everybody, then that means that this problem just magically appeared out of nowhere and it's not my fault. And we're not here to point blame. We're here to understand and listen to and really pull apart what we're being fed, what we're being told, what we're being led to believe, and more importantly, preparing ourselves to be put in a position to actually survive moving forward. And when folks are coming out here talking about the greatest wealth transfer, we've had a wealth transfer for the longest. I mean, I'm not going to get into the semantics of it, but we've had a significant wealth transfer for the longest. And I'll go into greater detail on another platform. I don't feel like doing it on here because people are they're gonna misinterpret what I had to say about that. So I'm not gonna do that. But I will say that whether this is a push by mainstream, whether this is a push by politicians, whether this is a push by deep state, whether this is a push by the WEF, the WHO, the whatever, the banks, the central banks, the Fed, whoever, whatever, if you or anyone you know is in a situation or a position where they're saying, I can't afford food, I have to try and do some things that aren't necessarily deemed and considered legal to get by. I'm in financial trouble. I'm not in a good place. I'm worried. I'm afraid. I'm panicking. I'm afraid. I have anxiety. I can't sleep. A lot of fear, weight on my shoulders. Potentially maybe sleeping in their car. Or maybe trying to find somewhere to live with someone, or whatever the situation may be. I would not at that point in time say to them, you know what? You need to fix your credit. You need to fix your credit. You need to up your credit score. No. Credit right now, credit is for people who don't have any money. Okay? Because credit is too expensive. The interest rates are high. Interest rates are high. This is a great time to put your money to good use to get a greater return on your investment from the money you have. It is a terrible time to utilize credit because credit is expensive. Interest rates are high. Your amortization schedule and your repayment is going to be high. Granted, the better your credit score, the less you're going to pay, but it's still going to be more. And now is a time to use cash. Now, cash is extremely important, and definitely cash is king, which I can pull up videos from, 12 months ago where people were arguing with me that cash isn't king. I said cash is king. And here we are. But I think that was the opposition trying to normalize the situation and trick and confuse most people who don't know any better, discredit me, try to prevent me from spreading my message and trying to help and educate people to improve their lives or better themselves or improve their financial situation or whatever it may be. The last thing I would want to do right now is even think about credit. Credit is awful, okay? It's too expensive. It's too high, okay? When the rates come down, credit is amazing, okay? When you can finance anything you want for 0% or 1 or 2%, maybe 3%, that's amazing. Now, granted, we did talk about this a little bit the other day about Ford offering some financing incentives on some brand new F-150 pickups. There's a catch to that, okay? What does the credit cost you? What is the actual bottom line? The buck stops here. What does it cost you? Okay. And we're not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to normalize the situation. We're going to address this head on. Okay. And if I had to make a choice after analyzing the data, reading the headlines, listening to people, experiencing life in the real world, and I have a fork in the road and I have two paths to go down. And option A, door number one, is fix my credit and improve my credit score, which is going to be really, really hard to do. If you can't afford food, if you're literally sitting there and agreeing with the headlines about being unable to afford food and pay your bills and this, that, and the other, then you can't afford to fix your credit. You can't. You can't. I'm just being 100% blatantly honest. You can't. Okay. So either you got to go down option number one, door number one, or door number two. Door number two is forget credit. Don't be afraid of the word bankruptcy. Don't be afraid of the word default. Don't be afraid of the word of collection or delinquency, because all those things can be eliminated. And in 2 or 3 years' time, you'll be back at it again. I can tell you firsthand that you can go from a bankruptcy to a homeowner driving a Porsche financed in very little time. Okay. And no one bats an eye at all. Okay. And honestly, it would be one of those things. It's like, if you really want to normalize the situation, everybody's doing it. You'd be a fool not to. Now, I'm not telling you to go out there and do that. I'm just saying, don't look at it from an extreme negative and deprive yourself of a possible solution to the problem. Because again, if I'm sitting here thinking I can't afford to eat, I can't afford to pay my bills, oh, let me fix my credit so I can go borrow some money that no one's going to approve me to borrow, to lend, because I can't afford to pay nothing. Yeah. Why would I do that? No, I'm going to go down the other path, and this path is going to make me more money. This path is going to save me money. This path is going to allow me to spend less. This path is going to improve my budget. I guess the question I have to ask now is, which path would you choose? Would you choose the route and the path and direction of a high credit score, which is absolutely useless in a situation where you have no income? Because you could have a high credit score and no job. I can show you how to get a high credit score, and then you have no job. So then you apply, and they go, oh, you got a great credit score. What's your income look like? Oh, I don't actually make any money. Okay, well, we're not going to let you borrow anything because there's no way you could actually feasibly pay us back. Okay, versus, well, I don't really have good credit. I don't have a credit score. Really? You need to eat? You need to pay your rent? You need to pay your bills? You got money? Got cash? Yes, I have money. I have cash. I have a job. Oh, great. Well, you can have whatever you want. Well, buy whatever you want. And that's the difference. Look, guys, more power to you. Do what you do. Folks doing what they do. I get it. This is part of the game that you have to play. I told you about the game earlier, and everybody's out there trying to win their own game. I get it. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that if you're broke and you're struggling to pay for necessities and buy food, and you're going hungry and you're thinking about resorting to crime, that you need to fix your credit. That doesn't make any sense to me. We need to be talking about, all right, well, how can I improve my financial situation where I don't need credit, but I actually have money to get by on a day-to-day basis, and then put myself in a position to improve my financial situation moving forward. And if you are one of the businesses that falls into the category of failing, soon to be failing, lumped into a category of seeing the businesses around you failing, these are your warning signs now. The news and the media and the headlines are going to normalize the situation and tell you that all these businesses are crumbling and they're going under, but that's not going to change you and your personal situation for you, your family, your employees, everything that's tied and associated with your business. And I see it. Michelle and I, we see it. We've seen it. We've called it time and time again. And unfortunately, what happens is people get to the end of the line. They get, to the point of no return, and then it all falls apart. And now they have to figure out where they're going to go from there, pick up the pieces and start over, rather than using this time and this opportunity that's made available to them to strategize and begin making plans and preparations and taking action for the safety net, for the plan B, for what's behind door number 2. Okay. Let's just go with that. What's behind door number 2? Here, take a look at this. I'll show you a little quick clip of what we went through and what we saw happening yesterday. Closed. Technically not closed. They just chose not to show up to work today. Sorry we missed you. And we got one more over here. Closed. So when I say people are leaving Florida, I guess I should be a little bit more specific about what that means. And more importantly, why? Because it's not just people. It's the people and the businesses, or the people associated with the businesses, for reasons tied to maybe Bidenomics. Hey, but the simple fact of the matter is that prices are too high. Customers are complaining that they can't afford it, and the businesses are too, and they are not renewing their leases, and they're looking for other places to go or other jobs to try to find employment at, because this isn't it. And when you tack on all the other expenses associated with the high cost of living and basic necessities, utilities, living costs, rent, mortgage, homeowners insurance, the list goes on and on. So Florida is just really not necessarily the most affordable place for everybody, and that includes businesses too. So just full transparency here. I didn't say I was leaving. I didn't say that you should leave, but what I am saying is that when people are leaving, there's a good reason behind why. And after a quick chat with some of the small business owners here, the entrepreneurs trying to run these businesses, and talking about $15,000 a month in lease cost rent or more, yeah, it doesn't take a rocket surgeon to figure out just why this doesn't add up to a winning combination.
So I think some businesses have a hard time succeeding where they are, maybe because people don't.
I can tell you my problems, meditating my silence, but I keep pushing my pen, rotating my stylus. Brokenness feeling like sin, now no breath, low dollar. Used to be left on red, now all the girls go holler. Now all the girls go follow. All the fake fans gon' pop.